Hello. Today I'm going to be showing you how to install macOS Ventura on unsupported Macs. So, we'll be using a program called OpenCore Legacy Patcher. It'll be linked in the description below. You will download it from GitHub. So as you can see here, I am using a late 2014 Mac Mini running macOS Monterey, which is its last supported OS. But we're going to fix that. So, the first thing you're going to do is find a flash drive. You're going to need at least 16 gigs. So go ahead and plug that in and open Disk Utility. And in Disk Utility, select Erase. You want to make sure you select macOS Extended Journaled and not APFS. And go ahead and hit Erase. So while that's doing that, you'll come to this page here, hit Getting Started, go to Setting Up, and Download, and click the Download here. And what you're going to do is scroll down, and you're going to want to pick OpenCore Patcher GUI.app. So go ahead and click that, and it looks like our format finished, so that's great. So it's going to go ahead and download the OpenCore Patcher. Alright, and once that's done downloading, you're going to go ahead and run it. So it's going to give you a warning saying that this is yep, there it is, a program download from the internet. Just go ahead and hit open, and you can go ahead and close Disk Utility. So first thing we're going to want to do is create the installer. So hit Create macOS Installer, and then you're going to hit Download macOS Installer. And it's going to have the latest version of Big Sur, Monterey, and Ventura. But if you want to go to a different version, you can hit Show All Available, and it'll show you everything it has available. So all the different versions. It even has the macOS 13.5 beta. But we're going to go ahead and go with the latest release of Ventura, so that's 13.4.1. And it's going to go ahead and start downloading. So once the download is done, I will be back. Okay, so now that the installer is about to finish downloading, I'm going to go ahead and go over what we're going to do next. So once the installer finishes downloading, it will ask us to go ahead and create the install USB. So this install USB will just be a standard Ventura installer until we do the part where we install the OpenCore Patcher, which I'll go over with you here in just a moment. So the OpenCore Patcher has to be installed on the USB because you are going to have to wipe your Mac. So it is very important that before we move on, after we finish creating the USB, you want to make sure to back up all your data because anything on the computer is going to be wiped. So I will reiterate that one more time before we go into the installation process. I'm actually running a clean version of Monterey, so I don't need to back up anything right now. This is just a test Mac. But it is very important that all your data is backed up. Make sure you have all your files, all your applications that you're going to need to be able to reinstall, everything backed up, because we are going to have to wipe the Mac. You cannot just upgrade from the OS you're on to Ventura. So now that the download is finished, it's going to go through and do what it's called validating the installer. All it's doing is just checking the integrity. This is the same as if you were to download it from the Mac App Store, and the very last part of the process is just verifying that the download completed successfully and that all the files are there. So it's running through that now, and once that finishes, it's going to prompt you to install the it's going to prompt you to create the beautiful USB from the installer. There we go. Yay, tongue-tied. So that's finishing. So now it's going to ask you for your password. So go ahead and put in your password to your user account. And obviously you need to be on an admin account to be able to do this. So it's going to go ahead and extract the macOS installer and create the bootable flash drive. Okay, you're going to get prompted here. It says create macOS installer. So what you're going to do is you're going to hit yes, and it's going to go ahead and fetch the ones you have downloaded. So I also have the Big Sur one downloaded. So what you're going to do is you're going to select the install macOS Ventura 13.4, and you're going to select your USB flash drive. And on this part, it says, are you sure you want to erase USB disk 2.0? All data will be lost. You're going to hit yes. This is why we had you formatted in the beginning, and putting your password. and it's gonna go ahead and install the installer. So we'll be back once this is complete. Okay, so now we're just validating the integrity of the disk. So it's checking the disk to see if all the files are there and if everything's ready to go. Once this part is done, we have one more thing to do in OpenCore Patcher before we start the installation process. So I'll be back when this is done. Okay, now the disk verification is done. What we're going to do here is, for this part, it's going to say installer created successfully. Would you like to continue and install OpenCore to this disk? So at this point, you're going to say yes and install the disk. And we're going to go ahead and pick the USB disk. And there we go. And it's going to ask for your password. Let's go ahead and put that in. And now it's creating the OpenCore boot. And this is the last part of the process. So for this part, you're actually going to want to hit ignore. Don't hit reboot. So OpenCore transfer complete. And as you can see, I opened Finder back here to take a look. So you can see that we have the install macOS Ventura on here. And if we open disk utility, it has renamed this to install macOS Ventura, and the EFI section that you saw being created is hidden. So what you're going to want to do now is go ahead and shut your Mac down. So remember that you need to make sure you have everything backed up because we are going to be wiping the disk. So my Mac is now shutting down, and I'm going to go ahead and boot to the USB drive. So go ahead and boot my Mac back up, and I'm going to hold Option on the keyboard. And holding Option is going to allow for me to select my boot device. There we go. So you can see I have installed macOS Ventura, but we don't want that because it's not going to work. That's just the regular Ventura installer. We want this one over here called EFI boot. So we're going to go into EFI boot, and that's now going to bring this up. So there's Macintosh HD, and then we want this install macOS Ventura. So we're going to get the Apple logo, and it's going to go ahead and boot up to the installer. And you can't see it, but the flash drive I'm using actually has an LED indicator, and it is flashing right now, so it is indicating that yes, it is booting off of the flash drive. So once this boots up, I'm actually going to turn my camera off because I'm going to time-lapse the installation and show you everything you need to do. There'll be a few steps after it's installed, but once that's done, we should be good to go. All right, I will be back once we're booted into the USB disk. Okay, as you can see, we are now at the macOS installation screen. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to Disk Utility, Continue, and we're going to go up here to Macintosh HD, and we're going to erase it. And at this point, we're actually going to format to APFS. So go ahead and hit Erase, and it's going to go ahead and erase the disk and create the APFS volume, Macintosh HD. So here is what we're booted to. This is install macOS Ventura. And here is our blank Macintosh HD. So we're going to go into install macOS Ventura. And continue. Agree. And agree. And we're going to pick Macintosh HD. Continue. And we're going to go ahead and let it install. Enjoy the time lapse. Okay, and here we are at the macOS Ventura setup screen. So we'll go ahead and click continue, United States, because that's where I am. I do not need any of that, and I'm going to go ahead and log into my Wi-Fi. This is actually going to be blurred out. All right, and now just hit continue. And I do not need to transfer anything. I am not going to sign in right now. You can if you want. I'm not going to. We're going to go ahead and agree to terms of service. And go ahead and create my account. And once we get logged in, there'll be a couple more things we need to do. So this has been just, how to install macOS on an older machine. Because, like this one right here is the 2014 Mac Mini. And it's supported all the way up to Monterey. Ventura is the first one it does not support. So it actually runs rather well on this machine. This one does have 8 gigs of RAM and a Core i5 and actually an SSD and everything. So it's going to run decently well. You got to keep in mind that if you're trying to do this on like say a 2010 MacBook, you will have some performance problems. So I would highly recommend that you at least put in an SSD, and if you can, upgrade the RAM a little bit, and it'll run a lot better. So when we get to this part, I would highly recommend you set it to dark mode, because until the patch is fully applied, there are going to be some issues visually that are just not present in dark mode for some reason. So now we're booting to the desktop. And it's going to take a moment. There we go. So we come up here, about this Mac. There we go. Mac Mini, late 2014. And we are on macOS Ventura. So what we want to do now is this is now going to launch. OpenCore Legacy Patcher has detected that you are booting OpenCore from a USB or external drive. If you like to boot your Mac normally without a USB plugged in, you can install OpenCore to the internal hard drive. Would you like to launch OpenCore Legacy Patcher to the internal disk? Yes, I would. So now you're going to hit install the disk, and this is going to, and this time we're actually going to pick the Apple SSD. Confirm. And it's going to ask for your password. And we're going to ignore that just for a moment. Now we're going to return to the menu. Now, we're going to hit post install root patch. All right, and now we're going to hit start root patching. And we're going to say yes. Put in our password. And now it's going to launch. And this is going to do all the remaining patching that we need for this to work. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my webcam back on. So once this finishes, all right, I'm going to hit ignore for now and return to menu. And we are done. We are now on macOS Ventura. So, as you can see, we do have OpenCore Patcher here, which does need to be installed, but that's it. So, if I go ahead and remove the USB I've been using to install, as you can see, it was ejected. Here it is right here. Whoop, there it is. And we open Finder. I have no external disks inserted, excuse me. And Their disk utility, Macintosh HD. So everything looks good. And let's go ahead and shut it down. And once it's shut down, I'm going to boot it up, make sure it can boot from the internal SSD. Again, here's the USB that we were booting from. I'm going to go ahead and power it on. All right, chime played. You probably were not able to hear that. And the light is on my Mac. And now we're just waiting for it to boot. So it is normal for this to take a minute. All right, there we go. So it's going to show that you don't have to do anything because OpenCore Patcher is actually opening the boot menu first. You saw that during the time lapse whenever it would reboot during the installation. And now it's going to boot into macOS Ventura. And we should be good to go. So let's give it a second here. And there you have it. We are booted back into macOS Ventura from the internal SSD. There we go. And that is how you install macOS Ventura on an unsupported Mac. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and have a great day.